Hi, I'm Tricia Kean. I'm the primary news anchor, the 5, 6, and 11 o'clock on Channel 13, the ABC station here in Las Vegas. I work the night side shift, so I'm up bright and early this morning to be able to spend some time with you. And I've been at Channel 13 for the last 20 years. And and I'm broadcasting from my house and saying hello to all of you. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Absolutely. And so for us to begin, can you tell us a little bit about what drove you to want to go towards broadcast journalism?
I always tell my son, I have an 11 and a half year old, and I always tell him that at his age, I already knew what I wanted to do in life, which I feel very fortunate to have felt that way at such a young age. By the time I was in sixth grade, I knew that I would be a broadcaster one day. And I was influenced by watching the local news where I grew up in Los Angeles. And also my family, they were avid news watchers and they always had ABC on in Los Angeles at the house. So I was very interested in watching the broadcasters. I thought that their job seemed so exciting to be in the know of what was happening all the time. And I thought, what more of an exciting job could there be than being able to be in the know and know current events? And so from an early age, I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And then as I got older and in high school, I remember my mom used to always listen to a radio show and of a psychologist. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be neat if I could merge broadcasting and psychology together? And I thought at some point I wanted to be a doctor of psychology and have a radio show. So I ended up going to Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona, and they have the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. And it is one of the best schools in the country. It's a top 5. And there I knew for sure once I got into my final 2 years at Arizona State that I for sure was going to be in broadcasting and at a high level as well, because I had read a lot of the bios of the people who had left that program. Some of them, like Al Michaels, who's a well-known sportscaster, he went to Arizona State through that program. There's many, many others. But while I was in college, I got to hear from Walter Cronkite. He came and spoke to students, Barry Goldwater, I mean, different high-profile people that lived in Arizona. And so one of the things that Arizona State, and I recommend it if you're thinking about colleges and you have any kind of interest in broadcasting, one of the things that happened at Arizona State was I was able to do an internship locally in the Phoenix area at the NBC station, go out with field crews and build a resume tape through the work that I did, not only at Arizona State, where we launched, the year I was there, we launched the first cable news show that ASU students had done. And now they broadcast many shows out of Arizona State. The actual school has moved on. It's so big now, the broadcasting school at ASU, that it has its own building and campus that's just the School of Broadcasting. It's very impressive. And the company that I work for, ironically, Scripps, one of the main schools that they go to because they love the graduates and they're so well trained for broadcasting is Arizona State. So they tend to hire a lot of Sun Devils at Scripps Broadcasting, the company that I work for, which is based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and we own television stations across the country. At one time, they owned HGTV and different networks as well. So we're a very progressive, active broadcasting company that I work for. But I would really say that if you are looking for a career in broadcasting, it's highly competitive. The industry's changed a lot with the advent of digital. But I would say to pick an amazing program like in Arizona State if you're very serious about this.
Absolutely. And one of our students here, and again, when you guys have questions, go ahead and message them in the chat. But one of the students wanted to know what kind of books or biographies would you recommend for someone who has an interest in journalism or broadcast?
Well, it depends on what facet of broadcasting you want to be in, because there is a different kind of way of going about the industry. That's a very good question, by the way. So for somebody that wants to be a news anchor, there are, or on a national level, I know Barbara Walters wrote a biography, a longtime ABC legend in our industry. I actually met her, interviewed her when she was here for The View. If you're interested in sportscasting, I would look at a biography that a very successful Howard Cosell. A lot of the people who have made it to high levels in broadcasting have written books. I would also let you know that when you do choose a career in broadcasting, there's many directions you can go to. And I made it to CBS News in New York by the time I was 30 years old. And I was anchoring a show called Up to the Minute, which was seen domestically here in the US. It was seen in Asia, Australia, Canada. And I loved it. I lived in New York for over a year and a half. But one thing I realized, and I'm a baseball mom now, but one thing I realized is that I wanted to have a life, because this is a very demanding career. As I said, I was up till midnight last night by the time I got home, and I go into work at 2 and I work straight through. Usually I take a break for dinner to see my family. But that's one of the things I would recommend, is that you start in the industry and see, you can decide ultimately your path. If you get to a high level, then you could say, hey, I want to come back down as a local news anchor. And that's why I've decided to have a career here in Las Vegas, is because I wanted a little bit more balance in my life, just outside of just living for my career, because broadcasting is a highly, highly competitive business. And it's also a business where you have to be willing to work extra, extra hard. These are not 9 to 5 hours. If you want that, go into finance or banking or something else. This is a business where you can be called at any moment. Like, for instance, with the Derek Chauvin case, I could be out at any moment on a street covering a protest, because we're going to be covering this story. So the question was about biographies, and there's plenty of them out there. But if you could maybe focus of the direction of where you would want to go into broadcasting, be an anchor, read a book maybe that an anchor like a Barbara Walters wrote, or a sportscaster like a Howard Cosell, or there's many of them like Al Michaels. I'm sure by now he's written a book about his career. So hope that answered that question.
No, absolutely. One of the kids in France, they want to know, what is the most memorable story that you've ever done in your career, if you had to pick one?
Wow, there's been so many, but I have to say, one of the most, it's sad, it's 1 October, the worst domestic terrorist act here in the United States, where the gunman from Mandalay Bay up on a high level shot at and killed so many and injured so many in the Route 91 Country Music Festival here in the United States. That was, I've never broadcast that long. I got the call that there was an active shooter on the Las Vegas Strip on a Sunday night, and I needed to come in. And I knew it was going to be very grim, because I live in Henderson, and when I got on the 215, I could see ambulances coming this way, and I knew, and I could also see by the time I approached the 15, another interstate, since you're in France, ambulances were going the other way, and that told me that there was going to be mass casualties, and I'd never seen anything like it. So unfortunately, that was the most memorable in terms of broadcasting straight for 14 hours, getting the latest information, what was happening. That was memorable because it was such a terrible act. But I've had memorable that have been so positive, interviewing some of the people that I've gotten to interview. Actually, I would say the most wonderful interview that I ever was able to do was with Oprah Winfrey, and it was very moving. And after the interview, she sent me pictures of us together and her personal photographer, and she spent a lot of extra time with me. I knew her first anchor in the business when she was a news anchor before she had her international show, which was the Oprah Winfrey Show, which was seen in countries around the world. And I know it was seen in France as well. So that was probably the most memorable in a positive way, the most memorable interview I have done.
It's wonderful, wonderful. We'll do a few more questions, then we'll let you go. But we have a question from Pablo, and I'm going to unmute Pablo. He had a very good question that's pretty career specific. Pablo, go ahead and ask.
Hello, Tricia. My question is there any specific skill required for the job? Thank you.
It's a very good question. Yes, I would encourage you all, if you have any kind of interest in on air, to read a lot. And if you have interest in being a news anchor, read. This is something that they told me early in my career, and it's very true. You want to read a lot, and you want to read out loud and articulate and take your time and practice different words and enunciation for an on air, but also reading about a lot of different topics and staying abreast of the news is certainly something, and writing as well. The key courses, something I tell my son all the time, the two skills I use every day, reading and writing. And those are the basic things that you're taught in school from an early age. And so reading comprehension is very important because I have to remember facts about a story. There's many times where I don't have a script and we have breaking news, or I'm watching a press conference and the producer is busy doing other things in the booth. So they just say, wrap this. And what they mean by that is give the bottom line on this, sum it up, and then go and toss to programming. So I have to listen to the key points, retain the key points, maybe jot them down. So I would say reading comprehension, writing, and learning to speak out loud and practice that and practice reading scripts. I did that in my early days. A news anchor taught me that in Phoenix when I interned, to read out loud a lot. And that will help you with enunciation. But it takes years. Now, don't forget, this is a skill set for something that I'm doing daily. This is a skill set that takes time. And I think you can tell when you watch television, no matter where you are in the world, when you watch the presenters, the broadcasters, you can tell seasoned broadcasters, and then you can tell what we call in the business green, people that are just getting into the business. And you can watch a broadcast at any time, no matter where you are in the world, and you can tell an experience level. It becomes obvious. But I would say at an early age to continue to practice that and read, whatever it is, current affairs, but also read and keep up on the news and read books and speak out loud and write. I write every day and I proofread and I correct scripts all the time. That's what I do. So those are important skill sets to be in this profession.
That's wonderful, wonderful advice, especially those of you who are bilingual or multilingual. Speaking of which, we have a question from Giorgio over in Italy. And Giorgio, you should be able to unmute. He had a question for Tricia.
Of course. First of all, it's a pleasure to meet you. And second of all, my question was, what brought you towards the world of journalism?
I think it was just the interest I had in the excitement of being in the know. I thought the thought for me personally, and Giorgio, thank you. Your English is beautiful. I was thinking as you were speaking, you could be easily a broadcaster here in America. You have a very nice voice. And I listened to that when I listen to people speak. But what brought me to broadcasting is I thought to myself, I don't want to sit in an office all day. And when I was in my early years of broadcasting, and I still do, not as much. I'm more in an office now today because I am the primary anchor. But in my early years in broadcasting, I was in the field a lot. And in fact, in the early days, I was shooting, writing, editing all my own product. And many people at our station do that today. But I thought the thought of sitting in an office all day and maybe doing something specialized, like working with numbers, just didn't seem exciting to me. But television seemed exciting to me. It seemed action-packed, and I was learning something new every day. And I thought it would make me a more well-rounded person. And I love getting out in the community. I love meeting people. I love doing things like this, and talking to students and giving back. So I think the excitement really is what drove me, and being involved in the current events and what is the latest. I like to know things before other people know them. And lots of people will say to me, so what's going on in the news today? You know, when people see me out and about, what's going on in the news today? So it's kind of fun to be the first to know. But now I will say that has changed with digital. People tell me things they see online, and I'll call in and say, is this true? Is this confirmed? So things have changed with the advent of digital and social media. I'm not always the first to know anymore because things hit social media before we even confirm things sometimes.
That's a very interesting kind of wrench, so to speak, thrown in the engine of broadcast journalism. So the final question before we let you go, as these kids kind of grow up and go out into the world and figure out what they want to do with their lives, whether it be broadcast journalism or something else, what kind of advice would you have for these kids as they figure out what kind of path they want to go down?
You know, I think that's really good advice, because I think that one of the things that I see throughout my career and watching the people who've been successful, and I think this comes from any industry, if you talk to people, I think one of the most important things is knowing what you want to do. And if you know what you want to do early on, it's sticking with it. Let me tell you, I've been knocked down many times in my career. I've felt insecure. I've gone home from work and cried, not recently, but in my early days of television, and thought, can I really do this? And I've pushed myself to sometimes face my fears. I've pushed myself to be in uncomfortable situations to grow. And that makes the difference between people that make it in the world and people who don't make it in the world at a high level. So anything, whether it's, I tell my son this because my son plays youth sports, and he's a pitcher and a hitter, but sometimes you get in uncomfortable situations, and working through those situations, I don't care what industry you're in, whether it's broadcasting, but stay the course and fight, and always be straightforward and honest and respectful and of your coworkers, and always offer and help. And one of the things that people tell me at 13, and the station I work at now, and I'm one of the longest running broadcasters in this market, you're not bigger than the program. You're not bigger than an athletic team. You're not bigger than a television station. You're one of the players. So Mike Wallace, the great broadcaster, said, don't believe your own headlines. And what he meant by that is, don't think you're all that in a bag of chips. Stay humble, work hard, show that you're willing to get in the trenches with the rest of them as you get in your career, and always stay true to your soul. If you find out that this is not for you, realize that early so you can make a career change, and don't stay in something that you're not happy in. If I didn't love what I do, I couldn't do this, because I always say, people in my industry, we love this business more than this business loves us at times, meaning it's a cutthroat business. It will chew you up and spit you out. But if you love it and you're willing to work through it and work hard and stay the course, I think it goes with any kind of career. And I think if you stay true to your soul and work hard and be honest and be a good person and be humble, I think no matter what career path you choose in life, you'll be successful.